circumstances today. We can be in our situations. We can even be in our spiritual walks where we may feel like we're not growing or it's really dry, and whatever the reason is or the circumstance that God prompts in your heart right now, look, stop for a moment and ask God, what is the purpose that I'm going through this season? Is it for growth? Is it for stepping out in faith? We look at a lot of our brothers and sisters who have left the church and God has taken them places. For me, when I think about Dane and Aubria and Dale and Tanya and Kahiva, they literally took a leap of faith. A total trust in God and what He was doing, not knowing the whole plan. And that's where it's where God's trying to say, look ahead. And He reminded me of Moses and the parting of the Red Sea. So we could just go to Exodus. Okay, this wasn't in my notes, so this is the Holy Spirit. I probably didn't have it marked. So we see in the book of Exodus, right, how God, He delivered, He freed, He got Israel out of Egypt. He took them out of that bondage. He brought them through the wilderness. And then we even see that even through all of this, the plagues and, just the hardening of Pharaoh's heart, even as I was reading this, in the past, and it comes to mind now, is that God was in this, in all of it. He was talking to Moses through the bush. He was telling Moses exactly what to do, where to go. And God, Moses being obedient and just doing what God told him to do, kept moving in faith and trusting God. But I see us like, we're the Israelites. We're walking along in the wilderness. We're walking along and we're moaning, groaning, complaining, But God's faithfulness, He still brought manna down from heaven. Right? He still brought water out of the rock. So there's that Father thing. He's still caring for them, providing what they need. And even for us, right, when we're going through seasons, sometimes we're just like, okay, what is this all about? When is this going to end? And we find ourselves complaining and griping and, just we're never satisfied. We're not happy. Because all these things keep happening. And it's like, oh my God, when is this going to end, If it's not one thing, it's another, it's another, it's another. We've walked off into self again. It's all about me, what's happening to me. For me. I learned the term while in recovery. I can find myself a lot of times, even in my spiritual walk, where I'm in that for me pity party.
Yeah. All right.
And then I need to come back into God and look at God. But when we read Exodus and we look at all the things that God did for His people when He took them out of Egypt, even as hard as it was for them with the plagues that were coming down, and even in the wilderness where they were walking for days and for days. And remember, in Exodus, God didn't take them straight, right? God took them around. Why did He do that? You remember?
Because they complained.
Well, not so much as a punishment, maybe a growth. But I think a lot of it too was because God knew already that there were going to be temptations along the way. Sometimes the shorter way is not always the best way, right? And they would begin to, probably fall into, this is easier to take care of. It's easier to walk this way. I don't have to put out so much energy and strength and time. I want my time. Me. It's all about me. I want to have my time for me. Anyways, God didn't just take them straight through. He could have. He's God, right? He could have taken them straight to the promised land and let's just, we're saved. But He took them through, using Moses, He took them through the wilderness, and He did things purposely. He did things purposely. He wanted to build relationship with them through Moses, because He was beginning to give Moses the 10 Commandments, right? And He was giving Moses instruction on things. And then we move forward a little bit and we think about how the gods of Baal was starting to rise up, right? and people were starting to turn from their ways because it was taking too long for God. God's taking too long. I'm going to find somebody else who can take care of my problems for me, that, has a quicker fix for me, because it's just taking too long. 40 years is a long time. And sometimes we can find ourselves in our seasons that we have a tendency to do that. It's back to that me, myself, and I. Right? Everybody else is supposed to make it easier for me. Everybody else has to, why am I doing all the work?
Yeah.
Right?
Help us, Lord.
And then we forget that the good God we serve, He wants to do it for us. But we're seeking other things. We're seeking other people. We're looking at other people to meet those needs that we think are important. But we're looking at other idols, whether it be, TV or music or, friends or, other activities to meet our needs of wanting to get this season over with, to get moving in a different direction because, oh my God, it's like I've been here for 40 years. But God has us in a purpose. Maybe He wants to give us more to drink of the living water. Maybe He really wants to smash that rock in our circumstance and pour out the living water of Jesus into us. But we're just looking at it as a rock. Because we're not looking at God. We're just looking at the rock, the circumstance, the situation. And so, God goes, He keeps doing this, and He brings down the manna, and He has Moses tell the people to pick up their tents, to move along and everything. And, they're tired, and they're like, man, it was easier back in Egypt. At least we had food to eat. We had a roof over our head, and yeah, we had to work really hard every day, but hey, we would eat fish and meat and all that good stuff. Do we find ourselves sometimes in those seasons where, I know God's got me a little bit on a diet here, but I wish I could go back to last week when, when roast beef was on the menu and fried chicken and all that. God's purposes. Changing that perspective of, okay, this is what it is today. It is what it is. But what does God want to do in it? And I think that's sometimes the question we need to ask God. We look at God and we say, okay, what are you doing in this? What are you doing in this? And then we even have to be careful because sometimes we get caught up in that. What are you doing in this, God? What are you doing in this? And we're talking so much and asking God, we're not stopping to listen. God wants to do the dialogue thing, we're just doing the monologue. And we're doing all the talking. Do we find ourselves in that season sometimes where we're doing the God thing, we're going to church, we're reading our Bible, we're doing our devos, we're going to Bible study, we're fellowshipping together, and we're just doing this one thing. We're just out. We're just going out and out. Are we taking the time to be in His presence? Are we taking time to spend time with Him and hear what He's got to say? I've had God tell me literally sometimes, when I'm just going away, He's like, can you just be quiet for a minute? It happens, right? Because we're so caught up in our seasons of circumstances and situation that we just keep, Lord, are you ever going to change this? Lord, am I ever going to start receiving a paycheck again? Lord, am I ever going to have money in my wallet again? God, God, there's no, I just, yes, Lord. And, the power bill's coming up, and, I'm probably going to go to the post office tomorrow, and all the bills are going to be there because it's like last half of the month, God, And I keep going like this, and God's like, shh. And that is a lot more powerful than the yelling and the thunderous voice of God. That gets my attention. Do we hear God sometimes? Does He beckon you with that quiet whisper, that still small voice? Or are we too consumed and self-absorbed in us and what's going on in our lives and what's happening to us or what's happening with us or to us? Are we so consumed in that and just me, myself, and I kind of thinking? Or are we hearing that still small voice and sitting down and not just keep on, for me, for lack of a better term, diarrhea of the mouth. I'm just spitting all out there and just saying, God's like, be still. mistake. And that's hard to do. Especially if our circumstances is trying. Especially if our situations are not seeming like they're going anywhere, they're changing or anything like that. We can get tired and we can start to complain and moan and become, finding ourselves in a pity party and feeling sorry for ourselves and expecting everybody else around us to feel sorry for us too. And then God comes into those places and He wants to purposely talk to us. But we're so busy with that, that we're not listening and we're not obeying when God says, abide in me. Sit at my feet. Listen to my still small voice. And so we get into those places. And that's that happens. But when I think about how God says, there's something more. There's something I want you to see. I don't want you to miss a thing, even in this season. And when we have a tendency, the Bible talks about some people who literally had Jesus with them in their midst. Were dwelling with Jesus. And there were things that, they missed. They just missed Jesus altogether because they were just too busy, focused on what was happening on the then and there, right? And I think of I think it's Joshua, but where he woke up and he said, surely God was here. Well, he missed God. Do we find ourselves like that? Where, everything's going on, and we're praying about a situation, and God answers prayers and gives us favor, and that was God. Do we wait till we're past that circumstance and that situation? That was God. God was there. Because I find myself in that, and I'm like, man, Lord, I'm sorry. We kind of think of Him as a past tense thing. God came, did His thing, oh, there He went. That was God. God was in that. And so we keep looking back to what God has done, that we're not looking forward to what God is doing or wants to show us. And I feel like He wants to do this experience walk with us when we start to look forward to Him. So like in Exodus, when we look at Moses and the parting of the Red Sea, and we think about, remember all the things that have happened with the Israelites and what they've gone through, and now they've come to it's not in my notes because I don't know. 14. They've gone through all of this, and now they're there where they're at the edge of the Red Sea, and then they've got the Egyptians that are coming and 100 miles per hour after them, and they're just kind of like there in the middle of it, and they have nowhere to go. And so now the Lord said to Moses in chapter 14, saying, speak to the children of Israel that they turn and camp before Pi Haroth, whatever, I can't pronounce it, between Migdol and the sea, opposite Baal-Zephon, and shall camp before the sea. And God told Moses to take them there. And we think, well, how did God do that? But God had a purpose. Even in that, God had purpose. And so He wants to bring people into those purposes. The Pharaoh will say to the children of Israel, they are bewildered by the land, the wilderness has closed them in. Have we been closed in our circumstances? Mm-hmm. Have we been in positions of maybe being perplexed or bewildered because we don't understand why this is happening? But we don't understand why is this still going on? I've gone to God, I've gone to God, and God hasn't changed anything. Maybe we need to change our perspective or even our prayers and say, God, maybe it's not what about changing the situation, but what about changing me in the situation? Our attitude. Right? Purposely, God puts us in places sometimes to change our attitudes, change our hearts. That's a lot of times the biggest reason why God has us in seasons and going through stuff. Because He keeps working in us, right? So we can look more and more like Jesus. And so this is the position that they were in. And then I will harden the Pharaoh's heart so that he will pursue them, and I will gain honor over Pharaoh and over all his army, that the Egyptians may know that I am Lord, and they did so. But even with the purposes that God has for us, even if we're not wanting to go through it, maybe it's painful, maybe it's like, oh God, I don't want to do it. The main purpose is it's not about us. It's for His glory. Our lives are supposed to be the testimony of God's glory. What more of a chance, what better way to magnify God in our lives than to be with Him in our circumstances and look at what He's doing in it. And allow Him to come in, not to change the circumstance, but to change our attitude in it, to change our character in it, to make us look more like Jesus. So, I think this is where God is wanting for us to hear where we're at in our season. It's not so much of, why God has us there or whatever. The ultimate thing is to give Him glory. That's what it's about. It's not about us. It's not about me, myself, and I. It's about giving the Almighty God glory. And He does that in our lives. We get to be the light onto the world that magnifies the glory of God, because people will look at us in our circumstances and wonder, why is she going through that? That's pretty rough, but man, there's something different about her handling the situation that I would have ever thought imaginable. So when people see that, they're drawn to that light, they're drawn to that peace, they're drawn to that joy that even in the midst of your circumstance, God's doing something in it. And it shows through our lives. And it gives God the glory. Right? And that's the goal. That's the goal. And we need to just really get out of ourselves. We need to stop being so selfish and say, hey, it's all about me, man. Me, myself, and I. Can you just change your attitude because it's not working for me today? No, duh. It's about going to God now. Okay, God, that clerk back there kind of really irked me, but hey, God, you love me too. But what is it in me that has to change towards Him? Not about what He does towards me. How do I respond to Him? Do I respond with whatever? When you don't like the job, then get another job or just quit. Is that the attitude of Jesus? Or God would maybe even in that moment, I'm so sorry, it seems like you're really having a hard day. I really hope it gets better for you. Have a nice day. Thank you so much for your help. See the perspective? See the change in attitude? These are sometimes things God wants to do. Even the most minute things, God wants to change it. Because it's going to serve a bigger purpose. What He does in the little here is for the bigger things here. And so, even with that, God also was talking about how even in the purposes of changing us, and whether it be in our attitudes, whether it be in our ways of thinking, whatever, we know this. We know that this is what God does. And maybe even now you're saying to yourself, yeah, I know that, Geri. I know that, there's a purpose in what I'm going through. I've heard that sermon, I've heard that teaching, so I know this. We know that we know. So it's like, okay, because I know what God said. God, so a lot of them have heard this kind of sermon. They know this already. So we know that we know that we know. And we know that God works in all things. Right? So God, what's the next thing? So He took me to where Moses, parted the Red Sea. Well, God parted the Red Sea, but He used Moses. And He goes, when we look into your circumstance, like for me, my present circumstance, I was trying to get what God was saying to me in this. Was it just about trusting me more? Was it about resting and abiding in you? Was it about pouring out my alabaster jar? Lord, is this like spring cleaning season that we're still needing to do this? God says, keep looking forward. There's something I need you to see in the process of walking. When He parted the Red Sea, the people walked on dry land. But when they were standing on the bank of that, they didn't see the dry land, right? You just saw the raging sea. And sometimes we do that. And God says, keep looking. When He talks to us about the purpose of why He's taking us through this circumstance or this season, walk in it.